Oh, welcome to the difficult, challenging, and nearly impossible task of being Jennifer Lopez in love. At the age of 51 years old, she has had 3 divorces and 3 broken marriage engagements, and she isn't giving up. Why is it so hard for some people to find a happy ending? This video is about the relationship with Alexander Rodriguez. So Alexander Rodriguez and Jennifer Lopez from 2017 to 2021. As of right now, as it stands, it ended as a broken engagement. Okay, this is the chart for Alexander Rodriguez, born July 27th, 1975. Ignore this time. We do not have a time of birth for him. He was born in New York, New York, and this is his chart. So Mr. Rodriguez is a Leo with a Pisces moon, and this is a very, very interesting and romantic combination. With the sun in Leo and the moon in Pisces, what you get is somebody who is chivalrous and believes in old-fashioned courtship and is romantic in all the old-fashioned ways, right out of storybooks and soap operas. The sun in Leo is going to make him very proud and very manly. He's very much enjoying all the things that are masculine, in the more fun, dramatic ways, not the mean, overbearing ways. Also, too, with that sun in Leo, the sun in the sign Leo, it's in its home. So he has a lot of power at his disposal naturally because his sun is in its natural rulership. Now, with the moon in Pisces, what you're going to get is somebody who's very sensitive and very imaginative. And so what we're getting is underneath this big, proud, leonine, masculine man. Underneath all of that, it's a big marshmallow. Like literally, he's literally a big old softie. So here, let me circle it first. There's the sun in Leo, and there's the moon in Pisces. So that moon in Pisces is very sentimental, and it's very sweet, and it's very empathic and understanding. This is somebody who really cannot tolerate cruelty to animals, and certainly can't tolerate people who are mean to kids. So he's very much about championing the underdog, right? Being the knight in shining armor in all the best ways. So I thought that was awesome, just awesome. So there's that. Now he has Mercury in Cancer, and it's conjuncting Saturn. So we're going to start with Mercury in Cancer. Conjuncting Saturn makes this pretty interesting. Mercury in Cancer is not given to expressing its emotions. They like to keep things under wrap. They're very careful about what they share with people. They don't like being vulnerable. So it takes a long time for them to get to a point where they can actually genuinely ask you for help, support, tenderness. It takes a long time for them to put down their shield, and be vulnerable and really ask for what they want and need. Now, that Mercury in Cancer, also too with Mercury in Cancer, what you typically get are people who are, they're very good at inside jokes and little pieces of information, so code words and stuff like that. So they're the kind of people that from across a party will look at somebody and like give them like one word or make a gesture, and there's like an entire statement being made because there's this secret language they like to speak with the people they're close to without having to say everything out loud all at once. So that's pretty interesting. Love notes are a real big thing with these guys. Although you guys do text messages now, so it'd be like text messages and code, I suppose, and whatever. Now, Saturn is in Cancer also. So with the Saturn in Cancer, what you also get is somebody who's extremely sensitive about issues that involve vulnerability. So typically with Saturn in Cancer, there's some early childhood experiences that were really powerful in terms of impacting them, and may have involved trauma or loss or betrayal. All right, and so it makes it very difficult for these people to trust and to allow people in and to be vulnerable on a very emotional level with other people. Now, because people like to use these planets and misuse them and try to play like armchair psychologist, here's the thing. Everybody's got Saturn somewhere. So wherever your Saturn is, there's going to be stuff that you're struggling with because it's not comfortable for you. So not everything is trauma and drama, right? So let's not make a huge thing out of this. And also too, what really hurts me, especially when I was younger, is not necessarily the same thing that hurts other people. So there are issues in for everyone where their Saturn is concerned about things that really were painful for them. And, this is a lifelong thing that they're working through. But it's not necessarily our job to expect or look for big, dramatic Hollywood, trauma productions, right? So I don't know. I just feel bad even going there with this chart. So there's that. Now with with Mercury and Saturn together, what this does is it creates a situation where the person's not comfortable, or no, let me rephrase that, where the person needs to feel safe enough to be able to ask for what they need, or what they want, right? To be very honest about what they really, really need underneath all of that. 'Cause they're very good at running red herrings all over the place. So that you never really know what it is that they're sensitive about. In this lifetime for him, with this combination, one of the things that he's going to have to work on, he's going to have to work on his ability to communicate and to trust. And also, most importantly, being vulnerable and being able to communicate the things that are coming from vulnerable places for him. So he tends to wall up and hold things in. He bottles things up a lot. And refuses to talk. He'll carry those hurts around for years. And, at some point he might explode and let it all out. But for the most part, it all kind of bottles up in him. And that's not healthy either. So learning to communicate the things that hurt us or bother us, or the things that are definitely connected to the parts of us that are vulnerable, is a big challenge for him, more than other people. And that's something he's going to have to work on in this lifetime. So I thought that was interesting. Now, the other thing too, with this Mercury-Saturn conjunction, I thought this was really interesting here. It sets up a T-square with Jupiter and Uranus. So one of the things that we're looking at with this particular combination is he may be smarter than he gives himself credit for. So with Mercury and Saturn together, there's often an undervaluation or an underestimation of our intellect. Okay, so there may have been issues in early childhood that had to do with the learning process. So, and with the Jupiter-Uranus involvement in this T-square, what we could absolutely see is he may have been treated like one of these kids who's got ADHD, right? ADD or ADHD. So he may have had a real problem sitting still in class. Now, the thing about it is, with those types of things, especially these high energy planets with Mercury and Saturn, there would have been a number of reasons why he would have been fidgety, right? Very fidgety and constantly in motion inside the class or not paying attention. And that could have translated into him being labeled as a problem child or having a learning disability, when that's not necessarily the full truth of what's happening. The result from this, however, becomes a situation where the person is constantly, one, underestimating their intellect or their intellectual ability, and also overestimating other people. So he's very easily impressed by people with education or who seem smarter than he is or more glib, right? People are more comfortable expressing themselves. But it's at the expense of his self-esteem, because he's not seeing that in himself. And the fact of the matter is, listen, I'll tell you something. The fact of the matter is, with this combination, right? With that Jupiter and Uranus, with that Mercury-Saturn, this guy has flashes of insight that literally are genius. He's got genius potential. And it comes through in those moments where he has these, just these wild thoughts, like, that come out of the blue, like, oh my God, what if blah, 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 blah. Like, so it comes in bursts, but because it's not organized and it's not formal or formally trained, like somebody who's gone to school and had higher education, he doesn't necessarily recognize that in himself. So one of the other things that he's going to have to do in this lifetime is learn to recognize the value of his intellect and how it is different from other people, right? Or other people he thinks are smarter than he is. Because here's the thing with IQ that a lot of people don't know or don't realize. The measurement of IQ, intellectual quotient, has nothing to do with being book smart. Being able to get through college and earn advanced degrees, that is not having a high IQ. You can literally have a medium IQ and a perfectly average IQ and go on and get a PhD in something. Book work, academic work, higher education work, these things require an ability to be organized in your thought and your scheduling and your time management, as well as the ability to do rote memorization and do the tedious work over long periods of time, do the long walk through this. That has nothing to do with being a high IQ person. And also, having a high IQ doesn't always express itself in the same way. So there are multiple different ways a person can show genius, not necessarily limited to academic work. But a lot of people don't realize that. So they figure, like, if you have a high IQ, school should be easy. If you have a high IQ, like, why is this a problem? Well, you went on and got a doctorate in something, you must have a high IQ. None of these things have anything to do with the other, just so you know. And this is the same with him. So I would bet you good money, this guy's got a skyrocket IQ. He's smart as all get out, but he completely has no confidence in his own intellectual abilities because it doesn't look like other people's, or at least the model that he was given when he was young. So one of the things that he's got to work on in this lifetime, that's all right there, is developing confidence in his own intellectual capacities. Okay? So, and that's a thing, right? That's a thing. Now, the other thing that's interesting about this T-square is that with that Mercury-Saturn conjunction as the leg of this T-square, what this also means is once he works through this stuff, right? Once he works through his issues and insecurities and anxieties about being vulnerable and learns how to communicate when he's feeling insecure, anxious, or vulnerable, that is going to be something that he's going to be able to give to other people. He will be able to mentor and guide and coach other people in that process so that they can get to a healthier place too. The other thing is that with that Mercury-Saturn conjunction and that Jupiter-Uranus as the opposite end of this, he will at some point be involved with youth, and he will do phenomenally well as a mentor and a guide and a coach, I guess, when it comes to youth. He's got a lot to offer younger people, and that genius of his, especially when it comes to teaching in non-traditional ways, is really going to come through. But he's got to develop confidence in himself for that to be really effective. So that will be interesting to watch, and keep an eye on. Now, I just want to say, because, he's an athlete, right? So it's like, well, where's the athletic part? So here's the thing. Let's talk about that for a second. So Jupiter and Aries opposing Uranus and Libra. Jupiter and Uranus opposing each other like that. It's going to give you lightning fast reflexes. It's also not going to give you a lot of stamina. So he's good coming out of gate. He's really good at bursts of energy, but maintaining it is not his strong suit. So, but with that, now here's the catch though, right? With that, the modifier is that he's got Mars and Taurus, which is a sign of endurance and stamina. So typically what I would expect to see, I've never watched his games, I should. And maybe you baseball fans out there know more than I do. But typically with that Jupiter-Uranus, what you get is somebody who's got a great big burst of energy, and they kind of peter out quickly, right? With him, what would happen is his burst of energy, if he's allowed to have a break between, right, just a breather between those bursts, of effort, he can continue doing that over and over and over again for eternity. Like he can go and go and go like the Energizer Bunny, but he has to have those breaks between those bursts. So it's that burst of energy, and then he's got to have a moment to kind of collect himself. And then that burst of energy has got to have time to collect himself. And if he's allowed to express his energy that way, his stamina and endurance is unbelievable, practically superhuman. Okay. Now, in terms of his love nature, with Mars and Virgo, oh, so sorry. Let me get rid of this. With Mars and Taurus, again, stamina and endurance. Honey, he can go and go and go and go until like you're screaming, stop, please stop, please stop. No, really stop. So with Mars and Taurus, they like what they like, and when they like what they like and they have what they like, they want more of it, right? And they've got no problem being gluttonous, like, just losing themselves in the ice cream bowl kind of thing. So with that, we're going to jump over here to Venus and Virgo, right? So Venus and Virgo trining that Mars and Taurus. You know, one of the nice things about this particular aspect, lucky girl if you can get it, Venus and Virgo will make it a point to learn exactly, precisely how you like things, right? Down to the finest detail and millisecond of timing. Like they will learn how you work, and they will make a mental map of it, and they will keep it in mind, and they will stick with it, right? So with with Venus and Virgo training that Mars and Taurus, you have somebody who will figure you out and will stay the course like always. So if you like things that are predictable, right, and you like what you like, you know, kind of thing, these are great partners to have because you never have to worry about them coming home with some kind of weirdo stuff. Oh, which reminds me, I'll get back to that in a second. Okay, now, I know I have heard rumors that apparently J-Lo broke up with him because she thought he was cheating, but nobody has any proof, and it was apparently some guy who said he was with some other woman, whatever, whatever, but blah, 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 and then she's denying it, yada, yada. Oy, ultimately, what we have is somebody saying he was cheating, and there's no proof that he was cheating. So, you know, it's a character thing, right? Did it really happen or not? He said, she said, or they said. So, here's the thing with him. He's got Venus and Virgo. The thing you got to know about this guy is he's a germaphobe. He does not like other people's cooties. And anybody with Venus and Virgo is typically very, very discriminating and picky as all get out about who they will let near them because they're germaphobes. They're afraid of getting your cooties or God knows whatever else you're bringing with you, right? Where have you been with those body parts? So Venus and Virgo, yeah, they're very finicky like cats. So they're not prone to indiscriminate, you know, throwing down at a moment's notice just because the opportunity arises. That is not their nature. Oy, no sirree, Bob. There is the possibility that Venus in Virgo can go to the opposite extreme, but typically when that happens, what you have is somebody who is celibate for, you know, long periods of time. And typically when that happens, that Venus and Virgo person is being a workaholic during that time. They're not having relations with anyone, even themselves, because they're burying themselves in their work. But when they come out of that, sometimes you have like this binge episode, like people binge drinking, right? They'll just like binge indulge themselves in, you know, all sorts of promiscuous behavior. But it doesn't last. They quickly snap out of it and go back to the things that they enjoy, which is order and organization and clean living and no cooties. No random cooties. And again, with that said, that trying that Mars and Taurus, I like what I like, and I don't need to sample anything else. I've got what I want right here. I like what I like. Why do I need to try something else? This makes it highly improbable, really, I'm telling you, highly improbable that this man is promiscuous, right? Because again, the whole cootie factor, like, and where exactly has that been? He's very finicky and picky about who he spends his time with. So I don't suspect that anything actually happened. I think somebody was jealous and trying to upset his relationship, which they've managed to successfully do, I want to add. Now, the other reason I say that I don't think that this is the kind of guy that runs around with women all the time, like he will spend time with them, but that's not the same thing as getting intimate with them, right? So some people are very flirty. That doesn't mean they're sleeping with everybody, right? So let's look at that. His Venus squares his Neptune, okay? So with the Venus squaring Neptune, the other thing about this is that he's very prone to daydreaming and thinking about things. So he will fantasize about all sorts of stuff, right? And with Neptune, you often have video and film and images, right, that are keywords for the Neptune. So like anybody else, I'm sure he's fantasized or thought about things or looked at pictures and films. That's just what people do, but that's not the same thing as actually doing it. And he's perfect. Here's the thing you gotta understand. He is perfectly comfortable just thinking about it because, again, cooties. If I'm thinking about it and it's not happening, I can at least walk away from this clean and germ-free. It's a real issue with people with Venus and Virgo. I'm telling you, man. Okay. Now, this also ties into the early childhood experiences and issues of learning disabilities or being mislabeled as having learning disabilities or ADHD, which may have been more the case. Because Venus and Neptune is very daydreamy, right? So the mind tends to wander and all that sort of stuff. Moon in Pisces is very dreamy. They're very imaginative. Their mind tends to wander a lot. This combination right here gives you somebody who's got a vivid imagination, a very active one, which is fantastic. In a school environment in early childhood, this may have been perceived as, along with the hyperactive behavior, may have been perceived as, you know, some type of learning issue. Or he may have had dyslexia or something small or minor in conjunction with it. So he may have multiple minor things happening that made it difficult for him to learn in a traditional learning environment. Okay. And that, of course, would certainly affect somebody's confidence and their ability to even see themselves as smart if they can't even get through regular school with regular people, right? So there's that. Now, oh, right, and that's the other thing. So with this moon trining Mercury and Saturn together also gives strong imaginations, right? So the mind wanders, but also too, I'll tell you, this guy's got a tremendous memory. So that's kind of interesting too. I'm not completely sure how that plays out. The other thing too is with him, he doesn't let go of things very easily. And you know, if you're a Venus and Virgo, right? With that Mercury Saturn conjunction in Cancer, like, it's going to be very difficult for you to let go of things too, because it took so long for you to find something you like. It took me forever to find this, and you want me to let it go? Have you lost your mind? Do you have any idea how much work it's going to take to replace that? And it doesn't matter if it's a pair of socks or your partner. Like, they have a very difficult time letting go because it takes them so long to find something that they really, really like. And that's what that is. Okay. Let's see. And what else do we have here? We've got Pluto, which is sextiling the sun, some minor aspect. So this covers basically, that's the other thing I wanted to add. So this basically covers the high points of his chart. Now, I will say that with this, I'm telling you, this fantastic dynamic aspect. With this T-square, with Jupiter and Uranus and Mercury, Saturn as the leg, he at some point in his life, he's going to be working with youth. He's going to be working with younger people, and he's going to be acting as a mentor and a teacher. And he's going to have so much good to give, so much wisdom, and so much powerful life lessons to share with them, to guide them. He's got to do the work on himself first, right? So he's got to work on his confidence in his own intellectual abilities, issues. He also has to definitely work on his ability to communicate when he's feeling vulnerable, anxious, and fearful, and all that sort of stuff, and work through that so that he doesn't get trapped in, this toxic manhood where it's just, sex or fighting all the time because you can't tell people that you just need a hug. When he can work through all of that, he's going to be a powerful force for good, especially when it comes to younger people. So let's cross our fingers and keep an eye on that, because I have confidence that this guy's a genius in his own way, which is a non-traditional way. He just has to recognize that in himself. So there you go, folks. Did I forget to mention, this guy is a world-class practical joker, especially if he thinks you take yourself too seriously. All right, now, oh my gosh, let's get into the compatibility. Woohoo! I'm telling you, these charts between these two are pretty powerful, So the first thing, when we're looking at compatibility, again, remember, compatibility, we're talking about taking a long walk through life with a partner. Like, marriage is a long-term thing. That's a long time to spend with somebody living in the same house. So there are certain things that we want to see that are easy between the charts, because you don't need extra stress and friction in your house, because life is stressful enough, right? We got enough stress and friction in life. We don't need it in the house too. The first thing is the moon, because the moon rules the domestic environment and it rules our emotions, right? Which pretty much drive 90% of our decisions and what we do in life and how we respond to things. So we really want to see sympathetic connections between the lights, the sun or the moon. These two have a moon-moon trine, which is beautiful. Remember, his moon is in Pisces, right? Get my ink over here. His moon is in Pisces, and we now have a birth time for her that is apparently 5:49 a.m., somebody said. So her moon is definitely in Scorpio over here. So we've got a moon-moon trine. And what that means is that these two have, especially in water signs, these two have an instinctive, unspoken understanding of where the other one is at emotionally. They know how, they recognize it, they know how to respond to it, they know how to give each other space, they instinctively know when the other person needs a hug, and their rhythms flow easily with each other. So they're very in sync with each other. And when you're sharing a household, that's an important thing. Okay, now his Mercury-Saturn, remember his Mercury-Saturn in his chart is super powerful, and it's right there. Okay, his Mercury-Saturn trines her moon. So this is important for a couple of reasons. One, her moon trining that Mercury and Saturn means that she has an effortless understanding of the things that he cannot say. Remember that Mercury-Saturn has difficulty saying things that involve being vulnerable, asking for help, asking for things that they need when they're not able to do it for themselves, right? The whole competence thing is a big thing for him. So having to ask for anything from anybody else when he can't get it himself is really difficult for him. Her moon in Scorpio trining that means that he doesn't have to work as hard to express it, and there's no misunderstanding about what's happening. Even though he can't articulate what he's trying to say very well, she gets it. That's the kind of relationship you have with a Moon Mercury trine. And we are here for it because his Mercury Saturn is so challenging and sensitive. He needs a partner that dovetails with him in a very supportive way where that's concerned. Her Mercury trines his Neptune. So let me find her Mercury. So her Mercury is here, and his Neptune is, oh my God, come here. There it is, sorry. Her Mercury trines his Neptune. So again, with Mercury-Neptune trines, you get an almost telepathic kind of connection between people. So the Neptune person is often able to sense or read the Mercury person without a word being spoken. Like they just kind of sense it. And also too, with Mercury-Neptune trines between the chart, if they spend enough time together, it becomes one of those things where they can almost finish each other's sentences, or they get those gut feelings like, oh, they're in trouble. They're in trouble. I need to call them. Something's wrong. That kind of a thing. So, in terms of day-to-day life, that's a beautiful thing to have in terms of compatibility. His Venus trines her Saturn, and his Venus is in Virgo. Turn on my light. There we go. Here it is. So his Venus is in Virgo, and it is trining her Saturn. Now remember, her Saturn is a very sensitive point. She's got some serious insecurities when it comes to stability and resources and, being financially safe and being physically safe even, right? So she's terrified of not having enough. So poverty or being impoverished in any way really, really upsets her. And with her chart, because she's got this square, right, for her Sun and Saturn. This is a very active, dynamic, powerful insecurity that drives her. So she also needs somebody who is sensitive to that and has something in their chart that dovetails sympathetically to support that. And his Venus trines that Saturn in Virgo. So his Venus in Virgo is able to give her routine and order and stability and predictability, right? So that the thing that other people would find boring, right? That, oh my God, that they never do anything interesting because they're on such a regimented routine. His ability to create an environment where there is that kind of structure and routine and predictability is actually, because of the trine, very soothing and calming for her, where she's the most deeply insecure and fearful. So that's a nice aspect to have in a chart, especially with her hyperactive Saturn in her chart. Okay, now her Venus sextiles his Jupiter. It's a minor aspect, but it's a pleasant one. Venus sextile Jupiter means that you enjoy each other's humor and it's easy to get along with each other. His Venus squares her Mars, so that's an interesting combination because one, Venus square Mars is going to give you a much more heightened, passionate response in a relationship, like, ooh, va 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 voom, baby. What's interesting is that it's his Venus and her Mars. So with that combination, what you typically have is the woman as the aggressive party and the man as the more passive serving partner, right? So, and if you're in a same-sex relationship, then what you would do is this would read out as the masculine partner versus the feminine partner, right? Because, or dominant versus passive. Like pick your adjective, but basically you've got one who's more aggressive than the other, or more dominant than the other, or more masculine than the other. And that's how this Mars Venus reads out. In heterosexual relationships, we typically just assume that Mars is the man and Venus is the woman. So her Mars drives their intimacy and their relationship, and his Venus is there at her service, as it were. Which is so classically Venus and Virgo. It's a perfect fit. Okay, her Venus squares his moon. So with her Venus, with anybody's Venus square moon across charts, typically what you get is a lot of high drama, which we're seeing. We're definitely seeing the soap opera drama here. So emotions and feelings tend to get exaggerated, you know, so they don't have little arguments. They have huge screaming fights, you know, which is not actually that serious. It's not that they're actually that angry at each other as much as they're that dramatic with each other. That's what you get with Venus square moon. And also people can be a little excessively indulgent when they're together with a Venus square moon. His Mars trines her Pluto, which is a nice aspect because Mars can give, especially with the trine, can give effort and activity and the force necessary to make those Plutonian things happen. And Pluto can give the Mars person a deep confidence in whatever it is that they're trying to achieve, right? So that Mars trine Pluto is a really nice aspect to have, especially when you need to get stuff done or you're in some type of work environment or some ambition in life that involves risk and a really deep confidence that you need to have in yourself. His Mars conjuncts her Neptune. Now, this is interesting, and we're going to get to this in the next slide, but this Mars conjunct Neptune, Ben Affleck also shares with her. Here's what happens when you have Mars conjunct Neptune. Mars conjunct Neptune means that there's a little bit of glamorizing happen, especially in the bedroom. So Mars conjunct Neptune sexually, like there's this ability to read each other without saying a word. So it's, if you can imagine somebody who reads you like a book without having to tell them anything or say anything, and moving in sync instinctively like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, like that kind of perfect timing and just rhythm and not even having to work that hard to lead or guide. It just kind of falls into place and you just go. That's Mars and Neptune. So in their intimate life, we can expect that this is definitely a component of their relationship. Now, combine that Mars-Neptune conjunction with Venus square Mars, right? We're never going to know this because they're never going to tell us, and we probably should never ask or even know this. But with that Venus squaring the Mars and Mars conjuncting Neptune, what you have is some dynamite, blowout, physical intimacy. Holy cow! Woo-wee! Me, Tarzan, you, Jane. But more than that, he is of service to her. So it's all about her pleasure and what she likes and what she wants. So she absolutely leads this relationship behind closed doors. And he's okay with it. And she's definitely okay with it. So I thought that was interesting. Okay. His Mars opposes her moon. And again, going back to the Venus square moon, right? Mars opposed moon. These guys have some huge, dramatic, blowout, soap opera style disagreements. And it doesn't mean that they hate each other and that the world is coming to an end. Although, to watch these two, like literally you're going to feel like you're watching a huge Technicolor movie unfolding. Because boy, talk about drama. Good grief. These two could argue about which way the socks go in the drawer and make it seem like World War III and divorces in the future, tomorrow. And then it blows over and then they're back to being normal. So that's in many ways that's part of how they blow off steam, and because you can't be in bed with each other all the time, right? You just can't. I mean, you would starve to death and dehydrate, and you get nothing done. So, and that Venus and Virgo's got a routine, man. You don't mess up my routine. So the thing about it also, too, so this is also how people sometimes discharge sexual tension in a relationship. It's just bickering, right? But you know those people that just bicker all the time. It's not serious. It's just what they do for them. So the other thing too that's interesting is when you see Mars involving the moon. Typically it's Mars conjunct moon that you'll see this with, but you'll also see it with a Mars opposed moon. Not necessarily as much Mars square moon, but Mars conjunct or opposed the moon. What you'll also see, which is kind of interesting, is it's a very powerful sexual attraction, and also because it's his Mars on her moon, there's also this unconscious desire to impregnate her, right? Which is kind of interesting. Now, obviously, she's well past that. This is not a good time to have babies at this point. And not everybody actually wants to be a parent. Like, he's got his kids. He doesn't need more. So the desire to impregnate her is literally a very primal, biological, instinctive drive, not necessarily a conscious desire or decision. But you'll see that a lot with Mars-Moon conjunctions. And oppositions, which I thought was interesting in this chart. So these guys have got some crazy, powerful, primal, me, Tarzan, Eugene kind of thing happening between them. Sorry. Okay. Now, his Mars, is it his Mars? Yes. His Mars? Yes. No, hold on. It is her Mars. Sorry, her Mars. Her Mars trines his Sun. Now, in a relationship, and especially between a male and a female, or, you know, obviously dominant, passive, masculine, feminine, pick your adjectives, the Mars trining the Sun allows the dominant partner, or the male partner, whichever one it is in this case, for him, it is his Sun. So her Mars trining his Sun allows her to imbue him with a tremendous amount of confidence. So she is in a lot of ways his best cheerleader, right? Or at least she feels that way to him, which is really, really nice. And the Sun trine Mars also acts as a guide, as it were. Like, it gives the Mars person a direction and a sense of purpose, and helps bring them back to reality and focus. Because Mars in and of itself doesn't focus very well, especially her Mars. And we're going to talk about that too. So his Sun trining that Mars, with all the other aspects, of course, really allows him to rein her in and help her focus better, right? Which is kind of funny, because it seems like, I could be wrong, but it seems like in his early and childhood environment with school and stuff, he was the one that people had difficulty reining in and helping him focus. And here he is in adulthood. It looks like he's doing the thing that they needed to do to him, he's now doing to her, you know, for the best of reasons, of course. So I thought that was interesting. All right, now let's keep moving on. Okay, now here's some interesting stuff that I found while I was poking around. I had to put this on a separate chart. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to, we were just talking about her Mars, right? Her Mars is what they call being out of bounds. So when there's a planet that's at a declination over 23 degrees or something, when you have a planet far enough out, it's considered out of bounds because it's literally well past the reach of other planets, right? And in an astrology chart, what that does is it doubly emphasizes, overemphasizes, zoom, intensifies the actions of that planet. Like, it's literally like a runaway train. So her Mars being out of bounds, now suddenly she makes all kinds of sense, because I just discovered this, I'm so sorry. Her Mars being out of bounds absolutely explains her jumping from relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship. So on the one hand, Mars is impulsive, right? So there's a lot of impulse control and maybe even a little ADHD that she's working with that needs to be kind of managed, as it were. The other thing is Mars rules your sex drive, right? And your physical intimacy. So Mars out of bounds in her chart could suggest that she's got a very powerful drive, But if we combine this with somebody who's been raised in an environment where they have to be a good girl, right? Where you don't just go and do whatever, like you have to be in a relationship and you can only do this with a person you're having a relationship with, and it has to be a real relationship, yada, yada, yada. This makes all kinds of sense that the only way she gives herself permission to satisfy her, you know, her basic human needs is by putting herself in monogamous relationships and going from one to the next, because she can't, because of the way she's been raised and the values she's adhering to, she cannot allow herself in her mind to take care of herself any other way, right? So she has to be in a monogamous relationship. It has to be a real relationship, and that's the only way she can get her needs met, right? No promiscuity, no random people, no hookups, no Tinder kids, you know, no little liaisons and tete-a-tetes, you know, that the other Hollywood people do. Very, very specific. So it's like the old-fashioned Catholic girl kind of thing, morality, hyper morality. So that, in that context, makes all kinds of sense why she keeps jumping from relationship to relationship to relationship. It's not even necessarily she wants a relationship as much as it's the only way she can manage herself. Now, the other thing too is with Mars out of bounds, what you're also going to get is, especially in Sagittarius, good grief, what you're going to get is somebody who's very energetic. And typically the way they burn off stress is by doing physical things. So Mars in Sagittarius, Mars out of bounds, Mars in Sagittarius out of bounds is going to give you somebody who blows off their stress and manages their tension by being very physical. And being very, very physical, it literally runs the gamut from working out like a crazy person, right? Superhuman workouts, to, you know, mattress testing, you know, like with the kind of vigor of a crazy person, right? So I thought that was interesting. But, you know, the problem, of course, is that it makes it difficult for the people around her, right? Because if they can't keep up, that's an issue, right? If they can keep up, but that's the only reason she's in a relationship with them, because she didn't really want the relationship, she just needed the time out and the stress management, and, you know, like they're trapped in this relationship and there's no telling when she's going to pick up and go because she's only invested in the physical parts, right? But you don't know that because you're all there and she's only half there. So I thought that was interesting. Now, of course, this is all speculation. We don't know because we're not her best friend. We're not her BFF, her best friend forever. So we don't have access to that personal information. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that that's the case, right? And also, too, because Mars out of bounds sits in her 5th house of love affairs, this would make all kinds of sense. So literally, she's the kind of woman who, when she is intimate with somebody, instantly falls in love. You know those, we know those women, right? They sleep with somebody once and suddenly they're in love and this is their soulmate and they're going to get married every single time. Woo, I think she's one of those. Okay. Now, here are some other things that I found that were interesting, right? So remember we talked about how A-Rod has his Mars and her Neptune together? Well, guess what? Ben also has his Neptune in the same place. So that sexual chemistry that we saw with Ben and with A-Rod, she shares with both of them. She shares with both of them. So they're both having that kind of telepathic, like unspoken thing. So good on her for being so lucky to find 2 in a row. The other thing that I thought was interesting, right? So Jen and A-Rod, oh, let me work backwards. Jen and Ben, remember I talked about that Jupiter-Pluto conjunction in their chart, which makes them a very charismatic couple. They're a power couple. They're very glamorous. People love seeing them together. Like it's Jupiter, like what we're, this phenomenon we're seeing now where everybody's so crazy about Benefer 2021 or 20, is that Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, right? So anytime they come together, they are a powerhouse couple, which attracts a lot of attention and also a lot of money. There are a lot of people willing to throw their support behind these two as a couple for whatever reason. And clearly it would be for marketing and publicity purposes and all that sort of stuff. But as a couple, they attract tremendous financial support, right? And all kinds of extremely lucrative opportunities, professionally, financially, you know, pick one. Now, guess who else has Pluto there? That's right. A-Rod also has that Jupiter-Pluto conjunction with Jen. How does this woman pick these guys? Like she literally is 2 for 2 now. Sorry, I'm a little jealous. Okay, So the same things that we said about Jen and Ben with this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction being very charismatic, people willing to throw their support behind them and very lucrative offers and opportunities and yada, yada, yada. The same thing applies to A-Rod and Jen. They're also a power couple when they're together. People like the way they look together. They attract support and opportunities from other people that they would not get alone. So she benefits from being in a relationship with either one of these gentlemen. So the question becomes like, listen, marriage is tough. Living life with somebody for the rest of your life is not easy. And I know the heart wants what it wants, but when we talk about long-term stuff, you really have to think about compatibility and, are you going to be able to stand each other after 10 years in the same house with each other, right? And that's not glamorous or, teenage hijinks or anything like that. That's some serious stuff, and it requires some of the boring, stable stuff to be there too. So now, of course, she's got this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction with Ben and A-Rod, which is a powerful combination. Oh my Lord, let me have some of that in my life. And she's got this Mars-Neptune conjunction with Ben and A-Rod also, right? So I'm sure in her experience, she literally feels like she's trying to choose between, two of the nearly similar things. Although, of course, she's giving us the story about how she's always loved Ben, and I don't, how do you, just listen, sidebar, how do you completely discount an entire relationship with somebody and an entire person by basically saying to the entire world that whatever you felt with them was basically a fraud because you were in love with somebody else the entire time? Like, that just, wow. If she leaves Ben and goes back to A-Rod and he takes her back, I'm going to be really surprised. And that man must really love her, because that's a tremendous blow to somebody's pride to hear something like that. Oh, you didn't really count because I was never in love with you. I was always in love with somebody else. So for somebody to get past that, especially a Leo man, right, it must be that he really, really loves her. Wow. Anyway, okay, back to the program. So now, so this is the thing. Right now we're looking at, well, which one's going to be easier to live with? Okay, so a couple of things here. One of the things that happens with Ben's chart, like we're going to revisit his chart again. Okay, he's got the sun at 22 Leo, and he's got Mars at 0 Virgo. Okay, so the sun at 22 Leo is squared by her moon. This is not easy in terms of living with somebody. I would not personally recommend it, because you're constantly, at sixes and nines with each other. You're constantly, going in different directions. So that's an issue. And listen, right now they're in this honeymoon phase and they're love bombing each other. And with all this Neptune stuff, it's very easy for them to kind of get lost in the sauce. That has nothing to do with getting down the brass tacks of doing life. They're on a honeymoon. This has nothing to do with the real world. Give them some time. Now, he also has Mars at 0 Virgo, and that Mars in 0 Virgo squares her Mars in Sagittarius. Now, for him, and this is definitely a problem, because again, same thing, they're going off in different directions there, and with Neptune involved, right? Because he already has a Mars-Neptune square, and her Mars sitting on his Neptune just exaggerates that drain. So you would think on the surface that she would be a drain on him, but actually it's the other way around. She's going to be a drain on her energy, and that's going to be a problem as time goes on. She's not going to like that at all. So the thing about it is, I was looking at this, and the houses, because we do have Ben's time of birth, the houses that are ruled by these planets in Ben's chart are specific, that are going to be hampered, right, and disadvantaged because of this relationship. And this is going to be the entire relationship, that will never change, are going to be things that have to do with his schedules. So he's going to have a very hard time keeping his schedules together around her, probably because he can't think straight when he's around her. His social life is going to be impacted. I don't know what that's about, but that'll be an issue as well as time goes on. And also children, his relationship with his children will be impacted by his relationship with her. Now, whether this is good or bad is a totally different conversation that we don't have time for here. But I will say these squares with the sun and Mars to the moon and Mars in her chart are going to present some challenges in those areas of life for him while he's in this relationship, right? So we're not necessarily seeing anything right now because, again, they're in the honeymoon phase. They're love bombing each other, and everything they're doing right now has nothing to do with the boring part of a relationship called actually doing life. So Give it some time. Okay. Now, here's the thing, right? A-Rod. We've got some really amazing stuff in these charts between these two. One of the things that I noticed is that A-Rod's Mercury is in contra Antacia. That's a minor aspect. Don't worry about it. And it's in contra Antacia. His Mercury is in contra Antacia to her Mars, her out of bounds Mars. So the thing about it is Ben doesn't really have any controlling or managerial aspects with his planets to her Mars, and her Mars is the problematic planet in her chart. She's got a whole lot of stuff going on, but ultimately for partnerships, for her partners, that out of bounds Mars is an issue because you never know when she's going to get up and leave. You know, or if she's going to pop in and you don't even know why she's there. Like, what are her real motives for being involved with you? Are you just, you know, like a a seat warmer until she gets the one that she really wants? Like, that Mars is problematic. Now, A-Rod's Mercury is contra Antacia, her out of bounds Mars, which means, believe it or not, this is a hidden aspect, and it's really interesting. I would suspect with that particular combination that he has the ability to manage her. He can manage her Mars. So A-Rod's got a great read on her, and instinctively or consciously, I'm not sure how this works, but he knows exactly how to get that Mars under control, right? That's amazing. So we'll see how this plays out. But when we see A-Rod doing what A-Rod's doing, don't think that he's doing this because he's a stalker or he's, you know, needy, or what is it the kids call it, thirsty. It's not like that. No, 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 no. He knows exactly how to get her, like, get her goat, obviously, but he also knows how to get that Mars under control. He has a good, solid read on her. So he knows what he's doing. This is not him being thirsty or needy or being a stalker or obsessed. This is he knows. See, and again, there's a whole lot that can be said without saying a word, and these two have a really almost telepathic, psychic kind of understanding of each other. So they are capable of telegraphing a lot of information to each other without ever saying a word, like out of their mouth in public or even in private. So, I know, right? Things that make you go, Okay, so this is amazing what I'm seeing here because you don't see this very often in charts. And to give you some information about what I'm talking about, as an example, right? And specifically what I'm talking about right now, let me use a different thing, is this. This is a grand trine between their charts. Now, grand trines in compatibility charts are extremely lucky, right? And what they do is they will light up the houses wherever these planets fall for each of the individuals. And it brings a tremendous amount of luck, protection, and success in the endeavors that they pursue that involve the grand trine and the houses the planets in grand trine rule. It's a powerful aspect. And as an example, what I'm talking about, Jeff Bezos and Mackenzie Bezos had a grand trine in Earth between the two of them. They completed each other. That's what a grand trine feels like you complete each other. So they completed each other in a way that brought material abundance, okay? And it is true because had Jeff Bezos not met Mackenzie, he would have never been given the confidence and encouragement by her to go start his own company, which was Amazon. He would have continued working as a vice president at whatever company he was at forever and ever and ever, and that would have been the end of it. But those two coming together with that grand trine on Earth that came into existence once they met each other, where they completed each other, created Amazon. So Jeff Bezos is not the sole founder of Amazon. Mackenzie is absolutely 50% of that company and its success today. And now that they are not together, that grand trine breaks apart, right? And what we're going to start seeing with Amazon is going to start losing its value. And not being nearly as successful and all the good things that it was while those two are together. Now it's a mammoth business, so it will take some time. It won't happen overnight. But watch and see if Amazon isn't heading on the downside now that those two have broken up. So that's what grand trines do. And you don't see them very often in compatibility charts. And when you do, you are really, really lucky. Okay? And these two, These two have a grand trine. Holy crap. So jealous. Okay, so he has his moon in Pisces trines his Mercury, Saturn in Cancer, right? So he's got an instinctive, intuitive awareness of things. Remember, I was telling you, he's got those flashes of insight that come, these bright ideas that come out of nowhere that are really valuable, even though he doesn't necessarily have confidence in them. Her moon in Scorpio completes that trine and makes it a grand trine. So in some ways, they actually do probably feel like they complete each other. Although this week, she's probably never going to admit that. Her moon, and also too, look at this. Her moon in Scorpio down here is conjunct the part of fortune in Scorpio. So her moon in Scorpio and that part of fortune setting up the grand trine with his planets indicates that they are very lucky for each other, and they have the ability to draw to themselves tremendous amounts of success in the world in whatever it is that they're doing. Now, because it's in water signs as opposed to earth signs, right? It's like, well, what does that mean? Like, what are you going to do with water? Like an overabundance of emotion? Well, no. I mean, yes, but no. Water, the grand trines in water are inspiring, right? So for people who are creative, inspiration is everything. Writers cannot write without inspiration. Musicians cannot make music without inspiration. Dancers don't dance as well without inspiration. Even sports people, athletes, don't perform as well without inspiration. Hence, the reason we have these stadiums filled with people cheering them on. Those crowds, the applause, the screaming, yelling, the support, the fans, that inspires athletes to perform even better. So for people who are involved in professions or lines of work that require inspiration to perform even better, to achieve higher levels of success, this grand trine in water is it. It is all that, baby, all that in a bag of chips. This is a phenomenal, powerful aspect to have, and they've got it between their charts. Now, the other thing is with her, because her second house is ruled by Leo, right, and it's pretty close to that. So there's some financial stuff. So anyway, sorry, I'm going off on tangents. This is very financially beneficial to her as well, right? So she would do better, or she would do very well in the long run with A-Rod because of this grand trine. That relationship would serve both of them very, very well in terms of success and security in life. Now, the other thing is, remember we talked about his Venus trining her Saturn, right? And how his sense of routine and order and predictability, all those things that are so crazy boring for other people, actually give her a sense of security and safety and help stabilize her, right? That Venus in Virgo also sits down in her second house of finances. So he, in many, many ways, and also her Saturn in the 10th, right? In many ways, he's very, very good for her financially and professionally. And it's hard to see because they're in completely different professions. But in terms of a couple, the things that are natural for him and innate to him support her profession and her career and help increase her financial security. We don't know how this affects him, obviously, because we don't have his time of birth, so we don't have houses. Maybe someday we will, but for now we don't. So this is what we have. Now that, right, so we just talked about combined with this, holy cow, this is literally like somebody giving you a map to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow where the leprechauns are hiding it. And so here's the uncomfortable part, right? We don't see this in the chart with Ben. What we see in the chart with Ben are some really dynamic, tense aspects that drive people to try and work through stuff because, you know, sometimes people mistake tension for passion. But ultimately, there are some issues there in terms of long-term compatibility with her and Ben, and I don't think that she's going to benefit financially as much as she thinks she's going to being in a relationship with him. I don't think they're good for each other financially. And A-Rod is the surprise player here. Who knew? Who saw this coming, right? So he apparently is the lucky charm that literally brings home the bacon and the pig. And if not that, at least the opportunity to meet Farmer John who owns the pig farm. So I thought that was interesting. Now, you know, we can know all of this, and that still doesn't change the fact that they might not get back together again. Because if Jen has set her heart on staying with Ben, and right now, like, she's really kind of she's literally kind of painted herself into a corner now, because how are you going to back out of this a second time and not look like an awful person, right? And how are you going to go back to your ex? Like, it's just, she's really backed herself into a corner with the way this has been played out. So she may very well go through with this. But remember, getting married is not the same thing as staying married, right? So I don't see a lot of longevity possible in that relationship between her and Ben. The smarter choice, my bets would be on A-Rod, but that may not be where she wants to be. So what are you going to do? Okay, and we're going to finish up this this particular video with the coalescent chart, or the relationship chart between A-Rod and J-Lo. So first things first, when it comes to animal attraction and primal passion, this is a very Tarzan and Jane relationship, which actually sounds kind of good right about now. Me, Tarzan, you, Jane. Oh. Okay, sorry, having a little fun. Intimacy is experienced between the two of them. The way they're experiencing intimacy with each other is, it is a form of healing and forgiveness between them, as well as a contest of passion and wills. So, you know, the whole F and F kind of relationships people have when they're young and energetic, like this is that. This is an F and F. And if you don't know what that is, I'm not going to tell you, because it involves bad words. So now, you know, the question is, you know, what does this woman want? Like, does she even know, right? And before I finish the little thing here, let's go up here for a second. So in the coalescent chart, let's take a look at this, right? So here we've got a Sun-Mars opposition with Venus as the leg, right, of that T-square, which puts all the emphasis and all the energy and all the chest beating and the, you know, Tarzan Jane sort of stuff into that Venus, you know, which is very healing and receptive and fantasy and lovely and delicate. Oh my gosh. So there's some really good stuff there. You know, they energize each other and inspire each other in ways that are just nice. Nice. Now here in their coalescent chart, they've got Saturn, Pluto, and Uranus together, and here's that grand trine. We've got another one now. It is a grand trine involving Mercury and Neptune. So what this could suggest is that they have the ability to read each other psychically, like there's almost a telepathic link between them. They also have the ability to organize and structure and work in lockstep, synchronized formation to accomplish their goals, which is very important if you're working on projects together and being married to each other. Because sometimes you can be married to each other, but when it comes to actually getting projects done, like your partner needs to go somewhere else because they're not helping. That's not the case with these two. With Mercury and Uranus and Pluto and Saturn, also too, this relationship offers the opportunity for them to really take ingenious risks, right? Ingenious ideas, and really build on them. And also too, again, it's that speaking in shorthand. So they have a whole language, or I would imagine that they have a whole language between them that doesn't involve very many words at all, right? A look, a gesture, facial expression, you know, just a kind of like a slight move, a word here or there, you know, little code words, and they've got entire sentences out of that, right? Where the rest of us are looking around going, what just happened? So there's that. Now, in the coalescent chart also, we've got Venus sextile Jupiter, which is a very nice aspect. They enjoy their time together and they enjoy similar things. Now, when I originally did this, we weren't sure what her time of birth is. We do know, in fact, that her moon is in Scorpio, not in early Sag, but it is in fact in Scorpio. So the moon in this chart is going to be a little bit earlier, and it is going to, yes, it is going to absolutely make contact with that Mars. So ignore that. So that moon sextile Mars, same thing. It's about daily habits and energy and getting things done and activities. So they have the ability to coordinate with each other very easily and almost effortlessly in terms of activities and doing things, which is very helpful if you're going to live with somebody, because you don't want them underfoot and in your way all the time. Now, my friends, this is some deep, interesting stuff. So this is the end of the video, and these are dates to watch. Now, with this, because I was curious, I set up the transits for Alexander and Ben and their separate respective relationship charts with Jen. So where it says relationship chart in A-Rod, that's A-Rod and his relationship chart with her, and with Ben, it's Ben and his relationship chart with her, separate things. Now, what we're seeing in terms of activity is pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting. So the first thing is it looks like A-Rod gets it before Ben does. So there's a lot of activity with A-Rod and Jen that's kicking off around the second week of December. I'm not completely sure what this is. I'm sure we'll be watching the papers, but there's a lot of activity between those two, right? Around that time. Because remember, relationship charts are sensitive to transits. So relationship charts you can read for transits overhead and activating things in a relationship specifically. Because there are things that are going to happen to you, there are things going to happen to your partner, and there are things that are going to happen to the two of you as specific to your relationship, right? So getting a raise at work, you're going to see a transit for that reflects or mirrors you getting a raise at work. That doesn't impact your relationship. Having a fight with your partner, that's the relationship, and there will be a different transit that will reflect or mirror the fight you just had with your partner. So that's what relationship charts are good for, and we know that in the second week of December, something's going on between A-Rod and Jennifer. While this is happening, what we're also looking at is the eclipse is going to be in a south node. It's going to conjunct the Jupiter in the relationship chart, and it's going to oppose her moon Neptune conjunction. So one of the things that we may see is around the first or second week of December, this pull, sentimental pull back to A-Rod kicking up. So they may be, I know she's deleted him from Instagram, and she's, going to sell him back all her businesses and wants nothing to do with him. Get away from you, brute. Oh, I want nothing to do with you. You're dead to me. I mean, I get it. I see it, right? But, things change. Things can change. So it will be interesting to see what happens between those two around the second week of December. Now, the Sagittarius eclipse, and this is now where Ben comes in, right? Because that first eclipse in the second week of December has nothing to do with Ben. By the time we get to the end of the month, that 12 Sag eclipse is going to hit Ben and Alexander and their respective relationships with J-Lo. So with Alexander, all right, this 12 Sagittarius eclipse is going to conjunct his Neptune and square his Venus. So there's a lot of fantasy and a lot of buildup and a lot of romantic longing that comes with this. Because remember, he carries Venus and Neptune square in his chart to begin with. So this eclipse is totally kicking off that romantic Venus-Neptune square, right? That pining away for your loved one and doing the great, grand, overt romantic gesture, or crying in your beer and grieving the loss of a loved one. Hard to say which one this is going to be. However, at the same time, in their relationship between Jen and Alexander, because clearly something's going on that definitely involves their relationship with each other, this eclipse is going to conjunct the Mercury in their relationship, and it's going to activate a grand trine, which is typically very good and very lucky. So there's the possibility, as hard to believe as it is, that these two might get back together at the end of the month for New Year's Eve, right? It's completely hard to believe looking at the situation now, but open up to possibilities, because that could very well be. We'll see if the charts read out the way we're reading them. Now, while this is going on, let's look at what's going on with Ben. So for Ben, this 12 Sagittarius eclipse, it's going to square his Saturn. That's not good. So eclipses involving your Saturn are not happy times. These are not good, pleasant times. Now, in theory, you could say that he's going to get really serious, with the eclipse squaring his Saturn. But Saturn is such a not fun, happy planet. You don't want people making like Dr. Kevorkian kind of decisions, when it's supposed to be a happy, festive time. So this is definitely a distinct possibility that December 31st, where this eclipse is, could really reopen old wounds for him. Not really sure what that's about. We'll find out though, right? Now, at the same time, this eclipse is going to oppose her Venus, because she's got Venus at 18 Gemini. As a matter of fact, he's got something at 18 Gemini as well. But the eclipse opposing her Venus, no, that doesn't make sense. I think they both have Venus in Gemini. Okay, so eclipse opposing Venus, no matter whose it is, definitely indicates major changes in the relationship. So, you know, this would either be a proposal with an engagement ring and getting serious and making the commitment, or it would be breaking up, because the Venus makes this eclipse to Venus makes a major status change in a relationship. So let's keep looking and see what's going on here. So what's going on with Ben and Jen's relationship at this time? This isn't getting any better. So the eclipse is going to square the Saturn in their relationship chart. So again, making serious decisions. Listen, if I had to get engaged, this is not the kind of aspects I would want to get engaged under. Saturn is very heavy. It's very serious. It's very hurt, and just a whole lot of dark, heavy stuff. So the eclipse squaring that means that there's going to be, that conversation that we've got to get serious about this. What are we doing? What are we doing? Where are we going with this? That's the kind of thing we're expecting with eclipse squaring his Saturn and Saturn squaring the eclipse squaring the relationship Saturn. And I would bet you it's him pushing this conversation and putting her feet to the fire and making her have this conversation and really look at it and say, what are we doing and where are we going? We need to make a decision now. So with that said, by the time we get to New Year's Eve, oh, these poor boys, by the time we get to New Year's Eve, that's going to be the end of the games between this soap opera love triangle between the three of them, because this is going to be literally the end of the line. So let's stay tuned and see how this plays out as we move on towards the end of the year and the culmination of this soap opera love triangle drama. And this has been Jennifer Lopez and her men with a look at Alexander Rodriguez. This video series will continue. We are currently finishing part 6 of 8. We've got 2 more to go, or maybe 1 more to go. I have to check my math. If you enjoyed this and you'd like to be notified of upcoming videos when we do the next ones, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. If you enjoyed the video, definitely please give me some feedback and let me know. I love hearing from you guys. Please hit the like button. And most important, because you guys are probably better at keeping up with this relationship than I am, if you have some insight or information about A-Rod, his professional career, his education, anything, or Jennifer, or the two of them, please put it in the comments section below and bring me up to speed, because I honestly don't know. I'm kind of working with limited information, and most of what I know is just from looking at the chart. So if you can fill in the little details, I'd really appreciate it. All right, you guys, this has been Miss Jenny with Primal Girl Wellness and Down to Earth Astrology. I am your astrologer, and this has been part of the relationship series for Jennifer Lopez and her men.